Hello everyone, welcome to one more episode of Google Ads Explained. Today we're gonna cover the topic of Google Shopping product feed optimization. And for that, we're gonna do a deep dive into a product feed optimization tool called ProductUP. And this is meant to be a tutorial which you can use for you to optimize your shopping feeds and understand the capabilities of ProductUP step by step. So without further ado, let's just dive right into it. Alright, so here we are in the interface. And basically the interface is pretty straightforward most of the times. And the first thing you'd like to do is create a project. The project would be the parent project under which you can host sites. And a site is meant to be a sub-project for each dedicated account at country level, for example. So, alright, so let's add one more site to the current existing ones. We can do Belgium in the French language. Here we can either create a new site or create a copy of an existing site. Because this is a totally unique site, we need to create a new one. Alrighty, so it's saved. Now we need to add a data source. A data source is pretty much where you fetch the feed from. Alright, give me a second to fetch the data source. Here we go. Alright, so here we have several options. We can fetch a data source from a URL, which is coming straight from the CMS of the web shop, like Magento or Shopify, etc. As well as Google Merchant Center or a Google Sheets file, as well as many other options like AliExpress, Amazon, etc, etc. But for the purpose of this video, we'll just focus on Google Ads for now. So let's add the feed URL. We can call it BEFR. And we'll add the source URL here. We save. And there we go. We have it all safeguarded. We don't need to adjust anything else here. We only need to go into scheduling and actually schedule this data source to be imported so that it sends information over to Google Merchant Center. So we'd like to actually select all days of the week and pick an hour of the day in which the information needs to be imported and actually uploaded back to Google Merchant Center. Alright, that's it. We don't have to do anything else in any other tab. And we can actually already start by importing. So that we're able to see something in data view. So this is now populating. Still processing, and it's done. Alright, but of course this is just a part of importing. We also need to do the rest. So right now we have import view and intermediate view. let me explain you what is intermediate view. But for that, first I need to add an export. Because there's 3 views, import, intermediate, and the export where our feed will connect to. So, all right now we don't have anything, but of course we need to add an export. In our case, our export will be Google Merchant Center. We'll just call it name and add. Basically, this will make a connection that is suitable for Google Merchant Center. All right, so we have a file name here. Now we need a destination. In this case, our destination can be the ProductUP server, but there's plenty of other options you can use to connect your data feed with the Google Merchant Center. You can also do an FTP server connection or any other choice. For now, I'd like to use ProductUP server, and I'll show you later how to fetch and schedule an import into Merchant Center. All right, red files have not yet been exported. Import and export the site to create the files. All right, so for that, we need to then make a run. And bear in mind, nothing is yet connected to the Merchant Center because I haven't yet used this link in the Google Merchant Center. So all good. While that is still processing in the background, I can show you the other features, but you don't have to necessarily do anything here. All right, the run has finished. All right, so we can now go back to the project. We can see the imported files are the same as exported files. And here we have the diagnosis of the upload and the import and export. Well, now what's important is actually to go to data flow and see actually the 3 views that I was talking about just previously. So we have the import, the intermediate, and the export. Import is the raw data that you get from the feed. Intermediate is the middleman where you can actually adapt the attributes that come from import. So imagine you can actually perhaps you're not so happy with the title and you'd like to dissect the title into different attributes and then actually concatenate them or join them all together under the same ideal order so that you can use it for Google Shopping. And I'll show you that in a second. But for now, since we've managed to do the initial setup, I'd like to show you how you can basically make use of another existing account to replicate the same structure onto this new structure. So you can clone the same settings of an existing account into this one. So let's go right into that. All right, for that you need to go to the project level and then hover this option called bulk option. And what you'd like to do is upload you like any other existing account and then choose any of these capabilities, like adding data flow boxes. But for that, I'd like to take a step back and show you something that makes your life a little bit easier. So let me show you this setup here, which is already good to go for Merchant Center, because the connections between import, intermediate, and Google Merchant Center are nicely done with optimizations in between. So for example, this description attribute got optimized quite nicely, and it's now good to go to export back to Merchant Center. When it comes to optimizations, we can do several things like removing consecutive white spaces, fixing words in capitals, cutting, exceeding text, decoding HTML, and so on. There's quite a lot of capabilities you can do with the ProductUP. All right, but what's important here to know is like you'd like to replicate all of the structure into a new site account. So for that, you'd have to go into something called Exports AB here on the left hand side, and this is where you have all of the exports for this sub project. In this case, Google Merchant Center, you'd like to copy the data flow and select the original site, original export, which is Merchant Center, and the target site you'd like to export to. So in this case is this one, also for Merchant Center, and copy. So basically what has this done is like it copy all of the connections between intermediate and the Google Merchant Center along with the boxes. But there is one thing missing though, which is the fact that we previously had custom columns attributes here in the intermediate, and now we don't. So for that, let me actually show you a side-by-side comparison between the UK account and the Belgium account. All right, so in the UK account, as you can see, the title attribute from the import was actually dissected into 1, 2, 3, 4 attributes. Actually, there's a couple of more, but we don't have to talk about this for now because this is for another campaign other than Google Shopping. And then out of these 4, 2 were actually used to merge all together to the final title for Merchant Center. So it's title 1 and title 2. Title 2 gets a direct connection with title of Merchant Center. Title 1 gets appended, that's why it's in a lighter blue color. Alright, so going back to the Belgium setup, we don't see the same here. That's because even though we managed to copy the data flow, we're still missing the custom columns here. So we actually have to create them and label them exactly as the UK setup. Title 1. Title 2. And now, if we go back again and do the exact same thing as we done before by copying the data flow from UK Merchant Center to Belgium French Merchant Center, then we will go to Belgium France, you now see a different layout. So title 1 gets appended, title 2 gets connected, exactly as the UK. So this avoids you to have extra work because now you get the exact same setup as the UK. Later on I explain you what happened here that made the title get nicely optimized. Alright, but now we have another challenge to overcome, which is getting the same sort of connections happening from import to intermediate as the UK had, as you can see. Alright, so for this, you'd have to go into the site itself. Oh, actually, the project name, and then go to an option called bulk option. So when you're at the project level, go to bulk option. Then you'd like to pick the origin of the project or the site that you'd like to copy from. Click next step. And now what would you like to do is actually add data flow boxes. So this will make sure that you get nice boxes for optimization between import and intermediate. But you could also do add data flow connection. But first let's do add data flow boxes. Alright, so select import to intermediate and then pick only the attributes that have optimization boxes. ProductUP calls boxes actually optimizations basically. I'm picking the attributes that have optimization boxes on them. And then I choose my target site. And as an instantaneous, hopefully, you'll get to see this change in a while. There we go. So now we have boxes between import and intermediate. Let's compare UK and Belgium now. Alright, so we have two boxes between age group and age group, color, condition. So it seems more or less that everything seems to be the same. And we don't have to do anything else. So it's good to go. All right, so let me now show you what these connections really mean. For that, you'd like to go to data view, and those three connections you saw are here. So import, this is the raw data that comes from the shopping feed, again from Magento or Shopify. And yeah, here you see all the attributes: ID, item group ID, title, description. But what happens with this raw file is that sometimes you are missing out on some attributes, like apparently there's like 1.36% of the description is empty, and you'd like to perhaps populate this with some placeholder in order to rank higher in Google Shopping. Another case could be that the currency is missing. In this case, it's not happening. But another thing could be the product type is not so clear. Like here, it's all concatenated between each other without spaces and weird characters. Yeah, so basically this is the raw file I'd like to optimize. The intermediate feed, you can actually finally optimize each attribute column. So let me show you an example. So here we have 1.10% empty. And what we could do here is that in case the value is empty and the product type is jacket, let me go to product type. Product type is here. In case that would have been jacket, then the description would get pre-filled with this static text, and so on. So this is one type of optimization you can do. And then once you do all these optimizations, which ProductUP considers to be boxes, you then connect them with the official Google Merchant Center shopping attributes. And then you get an overall optimized feed. So an example of optimized attribute is title. Here, if I could go back to import, you see this sort of structure, which is comprised by the company name in capitals with the product name, and then product model in capitals, followed by the size of the product and the color. By using some optimizations here in the intermediate view, it was possible to then optimize the title. So that the title actually, I still have to refresh because the connection is still being made. Alright, so basically what happened here is like the company name goes in the beginning, the product name is followed, and then the product model comes later. So basically you can optimize the order of the taxonomy of the product title with ProductUP. Once you're all done, you just have to make sure that the export is connected and up and running. No warnings, no nothing. And then make a run. And of course, take the shopping optimized feed and go to Merchant Center and make sure to include that. Into the fetch and schedule setup. I'm not gonna do it right now, but in case you'd like to do it, you have to go to settings, then fetch and schedule, set up fetch and schedule daily, for example at 5. It should always be after ProductUP has imported the files. Choose your own local time and then place the URL here and save. Then you're good to go. It's always recommended to actually do a reprocess feed after you do this. And there you go, you're good to go. And yeah, that's it for this episode. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. And hope that this was useful. If you have any questions, feel free to drop it down in the comments. And make sure to make a like and support this channel. Thank you so much, and see you in the next video. Cheers.